Good evening, everybody. We're just hopping on here and getting everything started. Hi, Juan. Hi, Mar. Hi, Sinue. Sinue, I invited you as a co-host in case you want to do that. If not, that's fine. So we're going to give everybody about 3 more minutes, and then we'll go ahead and get started. How is everyone doing tonight?
Good, and you?
Excellent. I'm just getting started on a second cup of coffee.
Yep, I'm doing the same here. Exactly.
So, Sinoe, it would be wonderful if you share uh, your your knowledge and the situation in Mexico about misinformation and disinformation. Uh, I mean,
Sure.
nor Sheni or I are expert on this, so we are always we're here to learn. So we want it to be interactive and well, sure. I mean, I hope to have people from all over the world. Especially, I would love to have people from India because the situation in India is probably a very good example of how misinformation is used by a government.
Okay.
I don't know in Mexico if it is that that much as
Maybe, yeah, yeah, we may have a couple of good examples as well. But yeah. I mean, I'll follow you guys. I will maybe share a couple of comments, and yeah, for sure, I have some stories maybe to
wow.
share as good examples.
That would be great. That would be wonderful. Uh,
Okay, I think we're going to wait 1 more minute, and then we'll go ahead and get this thing kicked off. And I'm going to continue to drink this wonderful coffee.
Yeah.
Mm. So thank you for everybody that's here early.
would you mind? Okay, hold on.
Okay, Alberto, do you want to go ahead and should we go ahead and get started?
Hold on a minute, okay?
Okay, no problem.
I'm tweeting something and we get started.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay.
Welcome, Colleen. Great to see you. Hi, Carl.
Oh, Colin, it's great seeing you there. Carl, welcome.
Good evening.
Hello,
Um,
who? Oh,
Alberto's
Colin.
getting something set up, and once he's done, we're
Yeah,
going to go ahead and get started.
yeah.
Copy.
I'm ready.
You're ready?
Yes, well, I am
Okay.
ready.
Well, we'll go ahead and kick this thing off. This is the very first Twitter space that I've ever hosted, but it won't be the last. As you can see, the topic today is on misinformation and disinformation in cybersecurity. Um, Alberto and Sinue will be co-hosting. We might have another alternate co-host as the this space moves along. By no means are we do we specialize in misinformation or disinformation. So if you could please just assume that we are ignorant on the topic. We're here just as much as anybody to learn about the topic. Me and Alberto, we represent two different organizations. Sinue is part of one of them. Me and Alberto are advocates for hacking is not a crime. Sinue and Alberto and I are volunteers with Rossi's cyber org. Both of those resources can be found in my bio, so please visit them and become familiar with them. Some additional information about this space is it will be recorded and possibly used for a podcast in the future, so please keep that in mind. Any resources or references relevant to the topic, please send in a DM to me or Alberto, and we can post it above the topic area on your screen so people can access that information. In the event that this space does crash, we will relaunch with the same name. If you do not want to speak and you just want to be a listener, but you have questions or comments, please direct them in a direct message to Alberto. He'll be happy to bring that up in the discussion. So I do want to go over the rules. We assume that everybody here is mature adults and exercise common sense. All people are welcome of all education, professional backgrounds. We're going to focus just on this topic. We're going to speak on this topic alone. Be respectful. And again, know that this is recorded. So just to kick off things, if we want to have an open discussion about what exactly is misinformation and disinformation, if anybody wants to get started, I'd appreciate it.
Jennifer, yes, I would like to add something that I forgot to tell you. If you want to speak, raise your hand. If you are a speaker, please silent your microphone if you're not speaking. Just those two things, okay? That's it. Jennifer?
Yes. So I was just going to ask, does anybody want to talk? I mean, I can, but if anybody wants to discuss what exactly is misinformation and disinformation, I'd appreciate it.
Because we are disinformed about this topic, basically.
Right.
Sinue, would you like to tell us about what is the difference between misinformation and disinformation?
Sure. So, hope that I can explain it clearly. So, essentially, disinformation is like propaganda. It's like, just false information. And then misinformation is like spreading uh, false information or information that can be misleading, but you don't realize that you are spreading false information. Hope it makes sense. Like disinformation is like on purpose, and misinformation can be inadvertently. I don't know if somebody wants to add a little bit more, but that's essentially the definitions for those terms.
Right. I would add like propaganda, be another way to kind of describe it, a way to steer the public discourse or, the public sentiment, the public thinking.
Yeah, I mean, what is misinformation used for? That's something that I think it's very important to talk about. What is misinformation used for? Anybody wants to collaborate and say what they think? Basically, I think the best example of misinformation we're calling mention propaganda in politics. I think it's a powerful tool in order to deliver information that is not correct on purpose in order to get people to believe certain things that make those that generate that misinformation an advantage against the other parties. So I think the best example is politics. I don't know if you can mention any other scenarios where misinformation is used. Um, it's a powerful tool, that's for sure. We will talk about that later. But where is it used mostly apart from politics? Um, you know, Sinoe, in Mexico, for example, um, I'm sure that obviously politics are the main scenario where we can see misinformation, but any other scenario where it is used as a tool for something.
Sure. Yeah. So, like you said, in Mexico nowadays, politics is the main usage for disinformation. So, I believe that the Mexico's president, like he really learned, like he really took a page from the last U.S. administration. So he's really using a lot of fake news like every day for in his public speeches, and because he's a huge populist in a similar, very similar to Nicolás Maduro from Venezuela or Hugo Chavez, who was his predecessor. So he speaks every day for a couple of hours. That's a lot of time, right? But let me step back a little bit, and I want to to lay a kind of a map of the different components in this disinformation and misinformation ecosystem that we currently live in, because I believe that we need to identify different actors, right, that are playing in all of this, let's say, infodemic or disinformation and misinformation uh, world. Like so, in one side we have the social media platforms, right? So there's also the users and also governments trying to regulate the social media platforms and the user interactions. So while it is true the social media is responsible for the information and for the public speech and that that runs through the different platforms, and I mean those social media platforms are very powerful because they can influence people, right? But also we as individuals need to exercise critical thinking, because while the social media platforms are very influential, we still need to exercise that critical thinking, right? But at the same time, there are things like bad advice, like for example, hey, uh, drink alcohol to prevent COVID, like, or take ivermectin or whatever, right? So I mean, there are still like pieces of bad advice that we can fall for, I mean, and there are more, obviously more outrageous claims like conspiracy theories and stuff like that, more radical, but that okay, that maybe nobody is gonna fall for those. Maybe many people will do, but even if we don't believe all of those like far-fetched claims, maybe there are some others that sound more subtle, more, more realistic, right, quote unquote, and like those bad pieces of advice, right? So we need to really, as individuals, we have a piece of responsibility in all of this, right? I mean, the platforms have rules, and and they they try to moderate content, but it's not possible for them to stop all of the things that are posted on them, right? And also the government is not, no government in the world will be able to come and solve all of those problems for us. So well, we should hold all of those platforms accountable for what they do not moderate. At the same time, we as individuals still have a lot of power. We still have a little bit or a lot, as you want to see it, of saying, of final saying in all of these, right? So I think it's like each one of those parts has part of the responsibility, right, on it. So there's a very important thing here. So we to prevent the disinformation and misinformation, we need to understand how all of that misinformation and disinformation works. And second, we need to understand why and how the social media platforms benefit from misinformation and disinformation. So, because if we don't understand these two things, we can become disinformation agents in somebody else's agenda, right? So we can talk a little bit more about it, about these two things, right, later, or maybe in another space, because it's a huge topic, right? But yeah, so back to
Somebody,
the
sorry, somebody sent me a message, and he's saying that misinformation can be a byproduct of disinformation. I think it's basically what you were mentioning.
yes, because somebody that is not aware, right, that he's spreading disinformation, right? So yeah, makes sense. That's a very good highlight,
Yeah, Matt
right there.
was the who made the comment. So thank you, Matt.
Hmm. Yeah, thanks very much. That's a very good comment. And so back to the original question, Alberto. So there's a very like a huge example of that in Mexico. It's a very gruesome case, actually. So a couple of years ago, there was a message in WhatsApp running through, yeah, and that essentially that message said, "Hey, watch out!" It was in a town like probably a few hours from Mexico City. Like, watch out because there are two men that are children kidnappers, right? And so the people from that town, right? So just saw two guys in a pickup truck, and then they took them, right, and so they tied them. And okay, guys, this is gruesome, right? And then they burned the two guys alive. I mean, that's the impact of this information. So the people of that town was fed up with children kidnappers, right? And so it only took one message in WhatsApp for the people to go mad, right? And enact, without thinking. So it is very important to realize that misinformation plays on a number of things, but essentially plays at the emotional level. So it pushes our emotional buttons. We can talk a little bit more about it, but I want to, turn it back to you guys.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's
that's
my comment.
that's a wonderful example. Yeah, your comments were very interesting, and the example that you gave, it's really, it's really scary, and it's not. I mean, there are many cases like that. When it comes to, for example, we were talking in another space about social networks and cyber harassment and um the lack of action. I mean, that police do not help people that are victims of those crimes. I mean, in the USA, in the UK, in Uruguay, in Argentina, everywhere. All the people tell me that they go to the police and they don't help them. Misinformation, so it's a powerful tool, but it's very dangerous. And uh, yeah, you mentioned it earlier. Uh, People should have the analytical skills to question everything and really do a, a research on everything they get from the media in order to, to, to have a clear idea of what's right, what's correct, what's wrong, the inconsistencies in the information, uh, some triggers that may be when you're reading some article. There's certain patterns that can show you or give you hints that what you are reading has something that smells like this is strange, and in those cases you should go and do your research. And it's so important to uh, go and look for information in sources that are trustable. I mean, there are so many sources of information that basically generate trash, but there are others that are very useful. I think that the case of the Guardian is probably one of the cases of the. In my case, I think that the Guardian is probably the most trustable source of information that we have. Uh, I think they are doing a great job delivering the good quality of information, and all they do is based on research. They are really careful in the way they handle the information, the way they check the sources. They do not release information without having those controls. I think that the Guardian is probably the best example. I don't know uh, other sources that you would like to comment about being trustable.
For example, there's a very good site which is Snopes.com, and for for debunking and for fact checking, it's been around for a while, probably since the beginning of the internet, something like that. And another one, well, there's like, for example, organizations that have been typically interested in the quality of the information and pushing for for a more healthy environment in information. But um, like some media, as I know that the NBC, for example, New York Times, but I mean, at the end of the day, all the media has an agenda and is leaning towards a political view of the things, right? So let's take those with a grain of salt. But I what I basically recommend is to go to fact checkers, like, if you see like some extraordinary claims or something that makes you think, or makes you to get angry or happy, if you're feeling some kind of emotion, just take a moment, think a little bit about it, go and fact check it, for to a reputable source. And I recommend sites like Snopes, essentially, that tell you, hey, this thing is true, or this is false, and it's true because of this, and it's false because of that. Or sometimes it's like mixed, like part true, part false, and sometimes it's a little bit more complex like that. But that's basically what I recommend.
Yes, here in Uruguay, we have a site that is called verificado.uy, that says
Right.
escudo contra la desinformación. That
Mm-hmm.
basically, it is a site that is run by certain journalists, organizations, universities, and the idea is to join, to work together. It began with electoral campaign, the latest electoral campaign, and well, basically they focus on two types of content, which are one, the things that are posted on social networks. They focus on that, and then on public the public declarations of politicians or people looking for certain positions in the government. So they basically work on social networks and politics, and well, that's a great way of verifying that the information is true or not true. Um they are willing to accept. I mean, if you have a doubt, you can go to the site verificado.ui, and you can submit certain information, and they do the research. So it's a very useful tool. Uh, I know the person who began this, and I can't find it now. She had a chart with like 9 items that should be considered when you are analyzing certain information that might trigger you an alert and make you suspect that something might be not accurate. So that's very useful. I can't find now the resource, but yeah, here in Uruguay we have that verificado.ui. And well, the cases in Uruguay are basically in politics that we see those kind of things. All the cases I know are related in some way or another to politics. On the other hand, in Argentina, uh, there is a lot of misinformation. You have organizations that you can hire them for spreading misinformation for either politic purposes or for companies that want to uh, spread wrong information about their competition in order to gain some market share of the business they're working in. In Brazil, a big issue now with the President Bolsonaro and the information that is being spread. Uh, I wish there was somebody from Brazil here to talk about that. Well, I won't mention Venezuela. Mm, I don't want to enter into that topic in particular. Uh, I would like to know, Curtis is here, and maybe he can share the situation in Colombia, which is also a place that I think misinformation is being used heavily for political purposes, and the situation in Colombia right now is a little bit complicated, I think, and I would like uh, to know if Peter, who require the microphone, if you would like to add something.
While we wait on that, I just wanted to comment that as far as that tool that you were speaking about, Alberto, that classifies different flags on indicating something is possibly disinformation. I'd like to get that resource and all the resources that were mentioned, and form a post so everybody can access that. Does
Yeah.
anybody else? Oh,
Uh,
sorry, go ahead.
no, I will post on the net the resource I mentioned. Both of them, the resource that you mentioned, Sinoae, you can post that on the nest if you want, or I can do.
Sure.
Okay, that will be useful. I was asking Peter if he wants to
Hello.
say something. Yeah,
Yeah, I
hello.
couldn't tell if you were actually, if you were talking about me or not. I'm brand new to this. I basically just try to start using spaces. This topic is really interesting to me because I'm the founder of an alternative video search engine that I started about 3 years ago. And the idea of the search engine itself is to primarily focus on content outside of YouTube. And so through my research in that time, I uncovered about 70 different resources to find video other than just YouTube itself. So the idea is to give the end user the ability to find, whatever video information they want from a lot of different sources, including regional as well. So what I found was there were competitors to YouTube in Russia and the Philippines and Japan and all this stuff that I had no idea these places existed, and that they actually carried multilingual content as well. So I ended up creating the video search engine for that purpose, and then actually ended up delving into the Wayback Machine so that I could give the users the ability to find and play videos that were actually removed from YouTube as well, along with a lot of other content. And so the idea here is just to give the end user the ability to find things across a lot of different platforms and a lot of places they're not aware of. And so it's grown to this point at about 650 million videos across about 70 different platforms.
Wow, that's amazing. And I wonder what role artificial intelligence plays in all this. Uh, we can quickly mention probably the best example of a tool being used for misinformation that I think it is Cambridge Analytica, that was basically a tool that was grabbing certain information about users from certain social network that I won't mention because I hate that social network, and I won't give the free publicity about that company because I think it's evil, and I don't like somebody whose name is, I don't know, I won't tell it, grabbing information from those users. They were able to detect certain patterns in the users, and they were delivering messages, advertisement, information in social media that were misinformation in order to basically not force, but make them make a decision when it comes to voting based on that misinformation they were targeted with in a very, I mean, in a great way. I mean, it was like something perfect the way it became, and I think the elections of 2016, the person who won, whose name I won't mention, won thanks to the difference was Cambridge Analytica and the misinformation that spread with that. So I think that is the best example of misinformation used.
Yeah, so a couple of things to that point. So I have not integrated any machine learning into the data set itself, but I would welcome any data scientists to work with me to do that. The other thing too, as well, is the search engine is privacy focused. So we don't save user IP addresses or user queries or anything like that at all in regards to saving or, ascertaining user behaviors or manipulating search results according to an algorithm because it doesn't track or use user history or user behavior. So I think that users appreciate that too as well. And then the other thing additionally is, if you do find misinformation through the search engine on specific platforms that maybe you're not aware of, you could ascertain that some platforms are highly, distributing content that is misinformation or is propaganda that you may not even be aware of at that point, other than the major players like, Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, or specific users. But, it could be that you end up finding misinformation that's being distributed specifically from Russia, from like VK, for example. So that, the search engine could be used to find good information, bad information, things to weigh different opinions on, or, or that kind of thing. And historical things too, as well, because we're indexing things from the Wayback Machine all the way back to like Real Player Media, Windows Media, QuickTime, all that kind of stuff too. So
Yeah, Wayback Machine is the best example that what's posted on the internet remains on the internet forever.
right.
And I would love if you could share a link to your platform to post on the net and have as a resource.
Right.
So that
Yes, please.
grateful. Yes. Eric is here. I think I know that guy, Eric. Would you like to mention something about what we have spoken here? You are more than welcome. You are the man, or maybe not. I know you're too shy, so you're not forced to.
Eric is very shy.
Yes, I know. So it's okay.
Yes, is that I'm sorry, I can't see your full name right now. Is it Pete? I see Pete Y. If you could share with us that platform, I'd like to see it and perhaps share it with others.
You are older, Shani. You need to wear your glasses.
Yeah. So, okay. So the long story short here is when I had done the proof of concept on the search engine, I couldn't figure out a name for it. And my cat is actually named Petey, Petey, which is a nickname for Peter. Some people call people Petey instead of Peter. So it's Petey Vid, Peteyvid.
Thank you. I'm sorry, my dog was barking a little
No
bit.
problem. I
Excuse me.
I also foster cats and work at a cat shelter, so I'm absolutely a cat guy. So that's kind of where some of that came from too.
Well, it's funny because earlier we were discussing in a group that when Twitter Analytics was showing the information about the likes of the people that were following us, at the top, I don't think it was cat or dogs, the thing that most of the user likes above everything. Yeah, I think everybody loves dogs and cats. Oh, I saw you unmuted you. You are too shy,
So
but
yeah, quick question. So I'm looking at the UI and I'm using Android. I'm not sure what icon I use to actually, is there like a chat thing that I can send a link through, or?
well, send it to me via direct message, and I will do it. I will put it on the net. That's it. That's easier.
Okay, and this is Alberto speaking, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
No, thank to you. Thank you very much.
The one and only Alberto.
No, you're the one.
That's right.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Eric Blardo here. No, I just wanted to say, good Friday, good Friday to everybody here. I see a couple of great names here in the conversation with Jenny, Alberto, Sinue, Colleen, Frank, Curtis, Carl, Mr. Juan Fernandez. So good people here in this group here. The only thing that I would like to add is, this misinformation, disinformation has been around for quite a bit. It really raised its ugly head the last 8 years, with the Cambridge Analytica issue, and previously with a lot of the different state nations that were doing this very strongly. Now it's so pervasive that sometimes you've got to think to yourself, is what I'm reading a piece of misinformation or disinformation? And I don't know if you guys already discussed the differences between misinformation and disinformation, and how they, what is the relevance between the two terms. But the
Yes,
say again, sir.
yes, we have explained the difference about misinformation and disinformation.
Great. Because, the way that I describe it a lot, whenever we talk about this, misinformation is somebody doing something on purpose. Sorry. Disinformation is something that somebody does it on purpose. Misinformation is when somebody doesn't know something, and made a mistake. But unfortunately, um, the lines have just been blurred so much with that, because somebody can put out a piece of misinformation, sorry, a disinformation, and somebody that doesn't know or doesn't think critically, will then share it, and that it becomes misinformation, because they really didn't know what they were sharing. A great and funny example of that is when satire companies like The Onion, which is a wonderful satire system, gets does some funny videos or blog postings, and people will take them as serious when they go into the social media. And I've seen so many times that there's people putting things in there that are just, you can clearly see that they're from The Onion or from a satire site, and it just becomes pervasive in the environment. We just did a show just 2 weeks ago on Raices Live with Isabella Garcia from the Krebs Stamos group, which was very, very informative about misinformation and disinformation campaigns, especially state-sponsored, and the ones that are being used right now to, you know, a disinformation campaign can be as deadly as an actual, attack against a country. It can destabilize a segment of the population. And this is why it's very important for us to look at that. And unfortunately, identifying a disinformation campaign is easy. But the challenge to social scientists, to security personnel, cybersecurity personnel, is what do we do when a disinformation campaign is activated? What do we do when half the population thinks one way and the other half thinks a different way? And I told some people just recently that the one of the things that different countries need to start doing a little bit better is teaching people, and this is not going to be an easy route, but the critical thinking of what is a way to identify and evaluate information that you're getting online. A lot of people think, that everything that is online is true. And it becomes an echo chamber. Depends on where you're looking. And it was interesting, Petey, that you mentioned. I know that Pete, but that you mentioned that you have this site where you're looking at that, and these some of these sites can become echo chambers to those people that are consuming the data and not thinking critically, and
You're
not saying,
absolutely right about that. Yeah, because they do end up being the focus group or the people that actually end up gravitating toward that do end up being of a similar mindset. Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's what do we do when we have these echo chambers? Perfect example, and I know you don't want to say it, but I'll say it out loud, and I don't have a problem. You look at Facebook, and people don't understand that Facebook depends on who you follow, and the people that you follow can become an echo chamber by itself, not because the platform is designed to do that, but it's because the followers that you have, and you start seeing their posts day after day, day after day, day after day with the same mentality, you don't have the ability to expand your horizon and see the other point of view. So learning how to navigate a system, learning how to look at that and how to research that. So if I see that the Earth is flat, and I'm sorry if there's any flat earthers here, but come on, guys. But if you see it and you've got family members that are flat earthers, and you've got friends that are flat earthers, and you're in a platform like Facebook, which only shows you who you follow, it becomes your own private echo chamber.
It
And
does,
that's all
honestly, not to interrupt, but I would say the human nature of tribalism only adds to that in a way.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I was talking to Sinue in a show that we did about those echo chambers and about the tribal nature of people. So we believe what our tribe believes,
Right.
and that is why we have to start teaching people, not that this is right, not that this is left, not that this is the center, but be your own person. Research it, and don't believe what your eyes are seeing. We have the scientific method for a reason. We have a hypothesis. We test the hypothesis. If it's true, we test it again, and then we give it to somebody else to test it. And once we get to that point where that's when we believe that hypothesis. But if you don't know how to go ahead and evaluate a piece of data, okay, it doesn't matter if it's a flat Earth or if it's a political candidate or something that we heard that Jenny does, on Friday nights here on Twitter. We got to research it. We got to find out if that's the truth. And people don't think that way. They get presented with with data. The tribe is saying yes, that's what the truth is, and before you know it, you're indoctrinated.
Right,
To whatever.
and not to be negative, but there's also the positive reinforcement from resharing and reiterating
Of
whatever
course.
that belief system is too, which is kind of dangerous. But it's again human nature to get reinforcement and kudos from people and stuff like that. But I get you.
All right.
Yeah, and I think sorry that we have amazing tools such open source intelligence that nowadays uh, can uh, provide us so many ways of mm, confirming or saying that something is true or not. I remember a case of somebody who was against the vaccination. I don't think if it was in Ireland or the United Kingdom. She was working in a hospital and she was having a banner saying that she had been working with people that were infected with COVID for 11 months, I think, and she didn't have the vaccine and she didn't got infected. Well, there was a huge, huge research on that using open source intelligence, and well, they came to the conclusion that that picture was taken 9 months, I think, before. So it was impossible that that woman could have said that she worked 11 months without being infected. So that was a way of proving, and the way they actually were able to locate the medical institution she worked in it was an amazing investigation, but they could prove that that person was basically transmitting misinformation. It was amazing. Colin, you had your hand raised.
Alberto,
And Juan.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear. Speaking of tribal, I'd love to hear what Colleen, the wonderful Colleen's always
Amazing.
bringing Twitter down every single time. So go, Colleen.
Yes, please.
All right, let me see if I can crash this place too.
No problem. We have a backup plan.
And next up is Juan after Colleen too. He's had his hand up.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll try to be brief. I just wanted to speak to the combating the tribalism and the misinformation. I've done quite a bit of that with family members. I've got my brother's kind of tuned into the whole QAnon kind of crap and debating him, trying to pull him back, give him examples of science, other places to get news and information from, where he's at. He's just not interested in hearing it. It just turns into an argument. So I end up just kind of relenting. And then I've had former coworkers that want to bring me like perpetual motion devices or things that they found online, and you try to explain physics to them, and it's difficult. Or you try to show them a picture, with the curvature of the Earth, and you explain to them, the bodies in motion that roll around the planets tend to become round after a period of time. We can see no example of anything flat out there. So things like that. Trying to provide them facts, it's difficult. Even if you can give them clear examples in their face. Hey, here's a picture. Here's a textbook example from where it's been a study that was conducted back in whenever. It's a challenging problem to combat.
Yes, absolutely. Uh, Shay for Fernandez, I think you had your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. I think the other issue is there's an inheritance like trust to these platforms, right? Because they're a larger company, thinking of, Facebook and YouTube is owned by Google, then users think, well, then if it's there, it must be true because they're a large corporation, right? I think back to, having discussions with some family members, and they just kind of assume, well, Facebook is such a large platform. They must be checking what content is being posted. They kind of assume because they're a larger corporation, there's some sort of moderation on these spaces, and so it's even hard when you present them with other tools to, verify the sources or debunk some of these myths. They don't believe those sources because they seem smaller. They kind of believe that the larger social media companies, well, they're larger, they must be serious, and so I think that creates a very trouble, some like problematic for especially not the tech savvy folks, right? I think any of us in cybersecurity or anybody who it's used to doing some research, like Eric said, right? Not taking things at face value, but digging will not have an issue with that. But there's many users that just take it at face value because of where they're finding it, but they don't realize that these are individuals posting on this larger platform, not the platform posting this information.
That's right. And everybody started saying that I was a serpent man from Mars the other day. So some people were like sharing that misinformation about me.
Oh, Eric, you don't deserve that. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Eric, is it okay with you if we post that guest from Krebs Stamos group, the guest that we had on the Russies
Yeah,
broadcast a couple weeks ago? We can post that
yeah,
above.
yeah.
Okay.
Post a video link. It was a great information for everybody that looks at misinformation, disinformation. And that's what she does. She's a researcher, and she was part of the um, CISA group that was doing the election security with Chris Krebs, and then did the after the after the election, she had the election project, and now she does nation states misinformation, disinformation. It was a great show. So yeah, go ahead and post it. Post the link.
Thank you. I just wanted to get your permission, and I think Alberto is grabbing it and throwing it up there so everybody can see. She was an amazing guest. It was a lot of great information on that, and I know that she specializes in this in particular, so I thought that was something worth sharing with everybody. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Hold on. I'm trying to approve somebody. Yeah, Paulo.
Okay, Paolo.
Go ahead, Paulo.
Good morning, good evening. I'm not sure what time zone everyone's in. Great subject, misinformation and disinformation. Something, I'm sorry if I butcher your name, Sinu, that was speaking earlier in reference to Facebook
Right.
being an echo chamber. I have an old account that I no longer use, and I keep getting random notifications. It's almost trying to push you back in. So I totally agree with that echo chamber, trying to bring you back in, trying to entice you. The question that I'd like to put forward to the group is, how come Cambridge Analytica and other companies, third parties and such, have got the ability to scrape that data, use it for whatever means, whether it be manipulation or suggesting alternatives to people that usually are not tech savvy and believe whatever is posted on Facebook. And the second part of the question is, will we ever be able to leave or de-Google or de-Facebook ourselves, since more and more technology is integrating itself with those giants?
Well, Alberto, do you want me to take that one? Because I know the first part of that question.
Go ahead, Eric. Go ahead.
Okay, Paolo. Thank you for your question. So, Cambridge Analytica is not the only company out there that's doing that. Remember one thing: when you get a free account, okay, to anything, always think this way: nothing in this world is free. You, the user, are the gold to that company, because everything you do in that platform is tracked. Okay. um just by doing your registration form, you are giving those companies 10, 20 data points. By the time that you put all the different things that are in there, and I always tell everybody, when you see on Facebook that somebody's doing those quizzes, okay, what's your favorite car, and what's your this, and what's your that, and what's this, and do you like this, and do you like that, and you see those questions like that, you are giving these companies data points. Okay. um, Cambridge Analytica at one point in time, because there's companies that are called data brokers. And what they do is they scrape that information from social media, from from your accounts. And I'm going to give you two really interesting case studies here. But with Cambridge Analytica, being able to scrape from the data brokers that work with Facebook, they were able to get an average of 5,000 to 6,000 data points off of each person that was there. Okay. With those data points, they know a lot of things about you. Okay. So with those data points, I can craft a campaign that says, for everybody that likes the color green, we're going to craft a green ad for you to buy, this new drink, and it's gonna be with a green tones. By having that, I can target all those users that like green. So I'm using a very simple concept, but now add all the data points, and now this person liked and I'm just going to say a Democratic or a Republican or a Libertarian. So now I know all the Libertarians or all the Democrats or all the Republicans out there. So now I can target those. Okay. How many people went to school? So let's target all the Cradicks. Okay. Or whatever political party out there that did not go to school. Okay. That's going to be, somebody that's not going to think it through or something like that. I'm just coming up with ideas here on the fly. So I can craft an actual campaign that's going to bring those people over to thinking the way that I want them to think. Okay. That's one way where we can do a disinformation campaign to bring more people into learning and feeding them information that we want. That's one piece. Other companies, there's a big case study, and I love this one, where Target Target Corporation, the company that the store in the United States, where they said, how can I track women that are going to be pregnant or that are trying to get pregnant or that are pregnant and be able to send them coupons or information so they come to our store and buy all their pregnancy, their kids stuff, all the different things that they want. And the data scientist was so good at being able to scrape the data. If they're buying this type of vitamins, if they're buying this, if they're buying that, that means that they're getting ready or they're pregnant or they're preparing or something like that. Well, fast forward a couple months later, a woman, a young lady, got a package, of coupons from the, prenatal and all that stuff. And the father came to the store and said, how the heck are you guys, sending this to my daughter? My daughter's not married. She's not having sex, blah, blah, blah. And it became a big deal. Well, 3 days later, the father comes in and says, I'm sorry, my daughter's pregnant. They knew because of the data that the girl was pregnant before the family knew. And you can read about that. That's the Target pregnancy story. So this data that we're giving people is so valuable to these companies because they can either target our spending habits, target our thinking, or target different parts of so that we do things.
Yeah,
So it is very important.
I would like to add that
Sorry, quick question. Did they
yeah,
get any of that information from Messenger, or was that just user behavior from clicking things? And
There were five. I think there were 5,000 points that they were
Okay.
using at Target.
Thanks. Sorry.
yeah, I would like to say that it's so interesting that for example, makes me think to what point are we actually making decisions on, I mean, are the decisions we make being made actually by ourselves, or how much of the decisions some people or all of us make are actually being made with the help of those tools? How that's something that is very interesting, and the ethical part of that. I mean, there's an ethical point that should be considered. How ethical is using those tools for that? For me, it's something that shouldn't be allowed. I don't know what are your thoughts, but first let's go to Paulo and then Mr. No NA.
And we have two other people in the room that have their hands up. If you
Yeah,
guys
I
want to
can
go
wait.
ahead.
I can wait. It's no problem.
Okay, Mr. NA.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me here and giving me a chance to talk. I thought it was a very interesting topic, and one thing that I've only kind of caught the tail end of the conversation here in the last 5 or 10 minutes, but as far as the disinformation and the misinformation, as you all know, we are inundated with information, and the age that we live in today, and I think it was Joseph Campbell and A Hero of a Thousand Faces that he said that, we don't really have in our time, we don't really have a cultural myth in the way that, you think of these archetypal, myths and legends, throughout history. And what I've observed, I've seen firsthand, seen the QAnon movement. I've seen, another speaker had mentioned, the flat earthers and everything. People are so hungry and desperate to believe in something that, I mean, the world around us today is just absolutely, when you really have an understanding of where we're at in terms of technology and the advancements and the emergent technologies and bio everything, it's pretty incredible. And so I guess my question, or just kind of raising a thought here, how can we possibly, another speaker just mentioned about tailoring these campaigns or having a disinformation campaign that might actually plant a seed of, leading somebody to truth, leading them to something. I do believe that the fascination in this, almost a blind faith that people have for, these fantastical type movements of, these conspiracy theories and this and that. Um, because we live in a pretty bewildering time, and people want something to believe that's greater than themselves. It gets them out of their rut. It gets them out of their um, the doldrums that the day in day out monotony of life, and it gives them hope. I'm a very apolitical person. I have a lot of friends that, I kind of bite my tongue. I'm like, hey, I will respectfully allow you to have your opinion and have your belief, so long as it doesn't infringe on, mine, or it doesn't infringe on someone else's. But um, what can we do about that? To give them an alternative, to give them something that is true, to give them something that's going to be beneficial for them as well as for their communities, that's not going to alienate them or isolate them from their neighbors and from their peers, um, but at the same time that still has enough gravitational pull. It still has that air of mystery and intrigue that these other uh, fringe movements cultivate. So that's all I have. I appreciate you guys letting me talk. So
You're
thank you.
more than welcome, and the issues that you mentioned are really interesting and makes us think a lot about all this. Paulo?
Nice one, thank you. Yeah, definitely. We going back to that topic in reference to information being scraped. Now, Eric, I'm a little bit familiar with those particular practices, but I think my question was more towards how can we, or would we, and I say we in a very loose term, um, make ourselves maybe more responsible for how we, and I suppose that kind of touches on how much information we know around technical, um, I don't know, interactions. You go to a supermarket, they already track you because you got a card that gives you points, and they know what you bought, your credit card, and all that stuff. It's like a next level OSINT, and analytical process of capturing, that data point of every individual. But I think my question was more towards, if we're always on this beast, everything that we use is relating back to collecting data. How can we, whether we be security researchers, whether we be just individuals that work within technology or even outside of technology, whose responsibility does it fall to tell someone, hey, you know what you're doing, you're actually giving away all of your information. You don't allow other people to open up your post. So we are aware, because that's a physical form of paper. We know that's a name or address, might be a bank statement, whatever. So do you think we've become desensitized? And I apologize for the
No,
loads
no,
of
you're right.
questions.
No, you're right. So I'm gonna speak personally here, not this is what I think. I'll preface that. But I think that we've got a couple things. Okay, so we've got to look at the ethics, the morals, and the reality of where we are. Um, the reality of where we are is the population at large is now very, very dependent on the systems that we use, the internet, the Facebook, I did say the Facebook, Twitter, and all the social media. Okay. Um, and it's going to take a fundamental change that is probably a generational change. It's not going to be something that we're going to be doing now. Some countries are going to be easier to tackle this. The U.S., unfortunately, unfortunately, we have the First Amendment, which means that everybody can say whatever they will want to say, as long as it doesn't hurt, meaning I can't yell fire in a crowded room because that could be considered a terroristic threat, and that's not covered under First Amendment. But if I say that the sky is green, nobody can tell me that I can't say that in public or on a social media platform, et cetera, et cetera. So we have a problem with people being allowed what is allowed and what is ethical and moral to do. Okay, so that's going to require a fundamental change. Now, that's in the speech and the misinformation piece. When it comes to the technology, we live in a era where all these platforms or all these soapboxes are companies. And a company can tell you, like, you go to a store and it says, if you don't have shoes, if you don't have shirts, if you don't have pants, we won't serve you. So the terms of service of those organizations need to change. Okay. In order to avoid things like this. But it's going to be a generational change. I think that at some point in time, there's going to be a breaking point for our generation, for this generation, that they're going to say enough is enough. And we're starting to see that with the data privacy issues. So you've got in Europe, you've got the GDPR. You can't share my data. I have the right to my data. In California with the CCPA, in New York, Las Vegas, and there's about 5 other states in the United States that are trying to put together some regulation to keep your data, for you to be able to delete your data. And, like you said, when can we be able to really be off of YouTube, YouTube or Facebook or any of these things? And we're getting closer to that. But I can tell you from our side, from the inside, it's very hard to do that, because once your data is in one point, it gets distributed very quickly. So when I get a GDPR or CCPA or anything like that, and it says delete my data, it's very hard to find all your data. So your data points are still going to be there. As PD said on the videos, once it's out there, it's out there. So we're going to have to work very hard, not only on the technology, but on the ethics, the morals, and try to figure out how to do these things in a different way. So it's not an easy task it's not something that we can solve in a night, but it's something that we need to start talking to people and saying, you got to be more responsible for your own, what you do with your data and what you do with the information that you receive and how you process that data. I think that's going to be I believe that it's going to be a generational education that we're going to have to do.
Yes, I personally think that laws are great, wonderful, but complying with them is another thing. We have laws that protect personal information. That's beautiful, but I think that the privacy should actually be enforced and be uh, done by technology. Technology should be the tool that would help us to protect our privacy, not the laws. I think the laws are just papers, and you know the cases about certain companies that I will not say the names of it. I refuse to say the name of those companies. That it doesn't matter what laws they should comply with. They break their laws. They do whatever they want. They lie to their customers. They basically violate the privacy in a way that is completely unacceptable. So laws are wonderful, but technology such as, I don't know, en- encryption and just to mention something, I mean, should technology could be the way to actually ensure that privacy uh, is being actually done. I mean, we can actually say, okay, our data is private because of technology. Yeah, Peter. I'm so sorry, radio. You requested to speak. We have the limit of speakers. As soon as we can have you up there, we will get you up. Peter.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I do think it's a generational thing too, as well. And I think it has to reach a certain critical mass for people's concern, for the ball to start rolling on this. I mean, I think it took quite a while for GDPR and a lot of things to get in place, but I think we're heading that direction, at least at this point, about people to be more concerned about their data being shared and how it's being used. But I do agree it's going to take a little while, and it's going to take a critical mass of concern with general users to end up either forcing or affecting companies to change their terms. But I think as it is right now, things are so incredibly convenient and free. There's just not a huge concern unless something personally or directly affects you, like that Target story, for example.
Okay, yes.
In my opinion, but thank you.
No, thank you for your comment. Yeah, I would like to ask you guys a question because I am disinformated. What's the difference between fake news and misinformation? Anyone can tell me?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
Same thing.
Okay. So fake news was basically the fashion way of saying that a couple of years ago. Now we use misinformation. Nice.
Come on, man. You're
Sorry,
fake
I don't
news.
mean to jump in, but it does seem like the fake news thing, because it was thrown around so loosely, ended up being adopted by a lot of people just because it was convenient, and it was something that if they didn't agree with it, they would just call it that. But it's not necessarily right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It became canonical. So.
It's because it's a concept that is easy to grasp, right? So fake news is easy to grasp versus calling the thing something else.
And people use it as a catch-all. Okay, so if they don't like what you're saying, you're fake news. Exactly. And I'm not going to do the accent because I do it very badly. Okay.
Okay. Hey guys, just a couple of comments. So the first one in what Pete was saying earlier about echo chambers. So besides those, we have something called the belief engine, right? Which is essentially that we are our own echo chambers, right? Even if we are not interacting with anybody. So there's something that when we hear things that contradict our beliefs, so there's something called cognitive dissonance that kicks in, right? And that doesn't let us to even consider what we are hearing, right? Which is contradicting, is essentially bias, right? So that's a very important thing to be aware of, right? So are we willing to consider the facts? Are we willing to be open to learn things and consider the facts? Right. That's something that we that I think that we need to question ourselves. And the second comment on what also Colin was saying earlier about talking with people. I think it was a relative. So there's two schools of thought about on talking with people that believe on conspiracy theories such as QAnon and whatever. So the first school of thought is like just don't bother, right? Like essentially live and let die. But for the people that you care, so there's this other like kind of method, which is start a dialogue process with that person that you care about. But it's a long process, right? So you need to start a very honest and open dialogue, which I find like very similar to a negotiation process in which you establish trust first, right? And in which you have to recognize that maybe if you do not know something, you need to be honest and say, okay, that I mean, there's not enough information about this aspect, but mostly this is the evidence, right? So let's let's think a little bit more about what we don't know, but this is what we don't know, and also be interested in why the person believes what they believe, right? And start talking about it. But it's a very long process to help that person to escape from this rabbit hole, which they believe sometimes are. sometimes the person doesn't go out, sometimes works, sometimes doesn't work, right? But it's a very long process, but it's mostly for the people that you care about. That's what I have, guys.
Agreed. Yeah, just got to take it slow and one conversation at a time.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Now, Eric, by the way, I think the sky is green. I'm colorblind, so don't discuss that with me. The sky is green. Sorry, man.
Come on, but you're fake news. You're fake news.
Paulo, you can.
Yeah, this I don't know if this is gonna ruffle some feathers in here, but in regards to misinformation and disinformation, I think this category may fall within it. Is it was a conspiracy, but according to Pentagon and other sources, apparently there is life beyond Earth. So I don't know what kind of category that would fall under. And that kind of seems to be like a bit of a social engineering. For many years they kept denying it, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, there is something out there, but we're not entirely sure what it is, but it is something out there, and suddenly all these fighter pilots started sharing their instrumental video footage, which kind of then feels like it's feeding into the conspiracy theorists that keep kind of gaslighting themselves, where they're kind of continuing this charade, or maybe, I don't know, disillusion, and which kind of brings you back to this whole data privacy. If you've got nothing to hide, then why um, why do you feel the need to hide it? And in the flip side, you got all these big companies collecting all this information, and one day they'll tell me that I'll need to buy. I think they already have that, where your grocery place will suggest stuff because you are a regular buyer. I don't know, crazy stuff. I just wanted to share that.
That's the catch, though, right? I mean, you talk about those analytics and the data points. It only takes 230 data points to be a significant study. So you said 5,000 data points. That's quite a bit of information that you can infer about someone. To us as information security specialists, that's horrific. The sound of that is just horrifying, right? But to someone that's in marketing, that's, to them, it's wonderful. That's great. That's dollar signs. And, unfortunately, the C-suite also agrees with that. So, that's a battle that we have, is this, unfortunately, capitalism drives us to figure out ways to get money as quickly and easily as we can. And unfortunately, with technology, it's easy to manipulate people into doing things with it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry, Jennifer. Would you like to add something?
I'm very happy to hear all the information that's been presented here. Eric, you had brought up in particular about this being a generational issue. I think you had a really great point with that. I think that especially proper education, research, teaching those techniques is critical to combating misinformation and disinformation. And this has already been discussed in this forum, how propaganda is not anything new. This has been ongoing since the beginning of time. So, especially in the digital age, it would be essential to with children. So I'm hoping with Rasis, with the kids, that there would be something implemented with that. And if anybody wasn't in here in the very beginning, you can go to my bio section, and there's a link to Rasis cyber org in there. Feel free.
Yeah,
Raíces.
Raíces, I couldn't teach her. Sorry, Eric. She won't get it.
Yes, forgive my
So two things, Paulo. If you go look at I just posted something for you on my Twitter. So I put that for you. I have a sign on my office that says, "If aliens are smart enough to travel through space, why do they keep abducting the dumbest people on Earth?" And I keep that on my desk.
Exactly.
And I just posted it on my Twitter, so you can see that I'm not lying. But yes, Jenny, following up what you were saying, and I know that there are a lot of folks out there that are working on things like that with the education piece. Um, and one of the things that we're doing with our foundation, with Raices Cyber, um, and if you don't, please go ahead and follow us on Twitter, Raices Cyber Org, RAICES Cyber Org on Twitter. And one of the things that we're going to be working on here in the next coming months is we are starting a foundation called Raices Kids to start educating kids in cybersecurity and critical thinking within the middle school, high school, junior colleges, and have different areas in internationally as well, to teach people how to identify these things, how to identify cybercrime, how to identify the misinformation, disinformation. So, there's a lot of organizations that are looking at doing stuff like that. There's a lot of programs that are trying to do that. And we're going to be working on that, at least with our little piece of the puzzle. But I think it's going to require, like we said, it's a generation. One organization can't do it. We need a coalition of people that are doing this. And by doing this, we need to go ahead and encourage other organizations to do this. And I think, once we start teaching people how to think, and I think one of the things that has happened is we've forgotten how to think, how to do that critical thinking, how to say, is this fake news or not? And I'm making it a joke, but Mr. NA said, brought up a very, very good book, which, by the way, I have it on my shelf here, is The Power of Myth. And that is a book that actually influenced um, um, the writing of Star Wars. Okay, and those myths that we tell ourselves as a population to believe in something, and it's very powerful. And unfortunately, those in the information age, it used to be that they got passed on verbally or by books. Now with the information age, I put a tweet out, and if I have a large enough audience, that thing will be shared and shared and shared, and within 24 hours, I can influence half a country. I wish I had that much power, but hey, but that's the reality. Somebody shares something, goes viral, and people think that it's true without doing some research. Maybe I just said that a alien landed on my back porch, and if I do it convincingly enough, and I use all the techniques of misinformation and disinformation, I can get a tribe to believe me.
Well, if you do that, I
Um,
will retweet it, Eric. I trust you.
oh yeah, there you go. I'll send you my aliens picture later on.
Okay.
What
Okay.
about the deep fake? Is it deep fake where they can rebuild a
We're
face?
not we're not we're not there yet. The deep fakes are so easily to identify. I mean, they're funny now and people are using them, but anybody, I mean, the general public won't be able to identify. But if you look at some of the deep fakes and you actually look at it and squint a little bit, you'll be able to see that they're not very good just yet. Okay. But in the near future, yes, this is going to be a big issue. Okay, think 10 years back when people started using Photoshop and all those as a big public, and people were like photoshopping heads of people on other bodies. That was the big deep fake back then. Now we have a little better technology that we can do it on video. Now that's going to start being another issue where you can see that Eric said something very bad in public. Okay. And then I'm going to say, "No, I didn't say that." And people say, "Look, I got you on video." So that's going to become a problem too for misinformation, disinformation. So we've got to get better at identifying what a deep fake is, and through technology in the social media, being able to say, look, this is not First Amendment. This is not free speech. This is dangerous, and we're going to have to, as ethical and moral, and as the laws allow, be able to say, if we identify a deep fake by whatever method, steganography or something, we can then say delete from our systems. And that's going to require ethical, moral, and technological advances for us.
So what about when leaders are encouraging, misinformation? For example, now there's a rise of populism in many countries, like in America, Trump, and in India, Modi. So some leaders just want to manipulate their people, and they use alternative facts, which is actually misinformation. So this also encourages the general public also to uh, use also misinformation. So I think it needs ethical leadership. So it is like a bottom up. So when the leaders are not obeying the ethics, then you see what do you expect the ordinary people?
Yeah, before we continue, radio, I cannot accept your request. We have free slots, so you can DM what you want to say, because I cannot accept your request. I don't know why. It's a glitch of spaces. Mr. Na.
Thank you. One thing that I've noticed is that when you have, the general population, absolutely need, these measures for education, and really awesome stuff you guys have going on. The projects you mentioned, I'm absolutely going to look into those. But we have, the last speaker was just mentioning, you had, these demagogue leaders that, these very sensationalist, very targeted kind of campaigns, on a nationwide scale, on a very much, like Jenny mentioned, propaganda, to call it for what it is, and people buy into that left and right. I mean, I'm just, speaking for the little guy here, and I have, some family members that, I mean, gosh, they live and breathe talk radio. They live and breathe the sound bites and the snippets and the 5-10 second little taken out of context little clips, and don't have time for the proper research. um, they're so busy with their day-to-day lives. They're so busy with their job and trying to keep their rent and their mortgage and their this and that. um, they're not really in this almost this upper echelon of higher academic um, thinking. So that I guess in the marketing world there's that term of you want to reach kind of the lowest common denominator, so to speak. Um, and unfortunately, the common denominator, not to sound disrespectful here, but it's pretty low. At least here in America. I can't speak for around the world. I unfortunately haven't been anywhere else, but um, it's pretty low, and that's an issue that there's a lot of different movements that are reaching out to um, undervalued communities, different, demographics of folks, and that's good. But on a wider scale, like the other speaker was mentioning, you can make a tweet, and depending on the size of your following, um, now you've got, just as an example, you've got somebody going into a pizza parlor and opening fire. And that is the danger. It is a very present danger. Um, that people are volatile. They're incredibly volatile. And that's only the way things are going. It seems like that's only going to get worse, in my personal opinion. And it almost needs to be countered with something, like I said, it needs to grab them. It needs to seize their attention, captivate their imagination. It needs to be something that is personal, because all these conspiracy theories, all these little things that people cling to for hope, and this, and yes, it's misguided. Absolutely, it's misguided. But unfortunately, I try to refrain from being, belittling or condescending. It's easy to say, "Oh, look at these idiots." Oh my gosh, wow, look at this crack job conspiracy, whatever it is. And that's all well and good. That's on one hand, but on the other, these are our neighbors. However you want to look at it, these are members of our community. And like the other speaker was saying, when they're people that you care about, and they're people that you love and respect, and yes, they may think differently than you, and yes, there may be cognitive dissonance out the wazoo, but at the end of the day, they're manipulated. At the end of the day, they're misguided and lost and confused, and trying to make sense, trying to grapple and make sense of this crazy world that we live in. And so it's a fine line. It's a very fine line to tread, because do we continue to alienate everybody else? Do we continue to just
No,
say,
but I will tell you from my experience, my
go ahead?
personal experience. Okay,
Yes.
my wife's family went down the echo chamber. My wife's sister, in particular, somebody that they grew up together, they loved each other, they worked side by side for 40, 50 years. All right, when the echo chamber started, she got lost in the echo chamber, and unfortunately, right about a year ago, they literally, her sister abandoned the rest of the family because her
Wow.
beliefs were so strong about the echo chamber, and I think everybody knows which echo chamber I'm talking about. But
Oh yeah.
they went to the dark side, if you will, and has not returned. And we tried with all the different psychological tricks that I have, all the different things that I tried to do, everything from the loving, caring education all the way to, here's the hard facts. Okay, look, I work in this, I can show you data. You're going down the wrong path, and she chose
People don't want to
to.
see the data, though.
No,
When they're so trapped in this, like you said, when they're so lost in the echo chamber,
Mhm.
they can look at a data, they can look at any peer-reviewed article, they can look at a white paper, they can look at a journal paper publication, and it doesn't matter because it's fake news to them.
Exactly.
Right. Nothing works.
Okay, everybody.
What do we do?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Everybody, we were scheduled to have this for until 8:30. We are over, but we're open to continuing a little bit longer. If anybody has any closing ideas, topics, comments, questions, anything.
Me. No. Paulo, go ahead.
Can I just say thank you all for putting this together? This is really great information.
I love this. This is amazing. Thank you, everybody.
No, thanks to you. Without you, this space would not exist, with nothing. So it's you who make this space possible. So it's us who thanks all of you. Paulo?
I wasn't sure if Bugs wanted to say something. I just wanted to add, in reference to the last few topics raised around information. I think it's going to be really difficult, because if we start filtering incorrect information so heavily, so for instance, if we start filtering bad information all the time, then that means the power or the onus will lie with one particular organization, people, and then we kind of go back to what Abdi Nasser mentioned about having leaders or governments or organizations that want to manipulate and feed feed into the random information. The other topic that Eric mentioned about teaching people cybersecurity or just security in general around technology is great, because at the moment, I feel anyway, people way younger than me, they have got into this phone. I don't know how to articulate this, but they are addicted. A bit like how I was addicted at doing really bad stuff, throwing eggs, doing stuff that I won't mention on here. And now they kind of lost that because they're just stuck on the phone. They're just, socializing in a different way, a generational thing, as Eric mentioned, I think, or Petey. But thank you all. Appreciate this. This is really a brainstorm, food for thought, stuff for me to research, to read about, and hopefully I can make a difference.
Yes.
Yeah, and Jenny and Alberto, if you guys can post the Twitter for Raíces Cyber on the top of this space,
Yes,
that would be
it
appreciated.
should appear. I have just posted. I think it takes a few seconds. It was really wonderful having you here. And regarding what Paulo said, we have already hosted many spaces touching the issues regarding cybersecurity, the education, the parents, the kids. I mean, generated awareness in the parents about the risk of having their children access to social media, that they are basically exposed to a lot of risk in many ways. And education is the key. Education is the key, and we're focusing on that. So we have spaces about that. So you can look at them in my timeline of Twitter, because they're posted as podcasts as well. Sinoe has also hosted many spaces that are also available as podcasts. They are in Spanish. But yes, education is the key. And we are here in this platform. It's a very powerful platform to talk about this, to exchange ideas, point of view, learn. This is a great place. And this space is the first Chinese hosting, but it's not the last one. We will hosting spaces on a regular basis. I just thank you, everybody. And Peter, if you want to add something.
Yeah, just really quick, I wanted to thank all of you hosts and co-hosts and everybody for being on here. This has been really enjoyable and informative, and thanks for allowing me to speak as well. Thanks, everybody.
I don't mean to interrupt, but could we let Bug speak before we wrap this up? I know they were waiting patiently to speak.
Who's sorry?
The Bugsy Bunny, I believe.
Yes, Bugs has been. Yes.
Okay, sure, of course.
I'm just going to try for the quick elevator ride. So yeah, I've heard y'all speak, and I mean, I'm one of the guys that I go everywhere. I mean, that's why the rabbit moniker anyway. First up, the internet. It's always where people can come because it is a screen. It's not me. So we played video games, all of us, and you took on a persona, right? You kind of carried that through the game. That's where you get it out. That is not the person that turns around and, hugs the kids and puts them to bed anymore. And there's been a lot of people I've watched like perfect even crime online, just repeating it where people didn't even realize they were. Facebook, the fake name thing, it's always on a 5 count. First 3 are facts. Fourth one is hey, wait a second. It's almost right, but you just slip something in. And then the 5th one seals it. And, down that rabbit hole, somebody will go to the end, to an extreme that something happens. And that's the guy that fell out and became a purist. But the thing is, man, information's a weight. I mean, we all know that. We've all found out things. Oh my God, I did not want to know that. But it doesn't make it any less true. And that's a weight you got to learn to carry. So I'm going to pop an extreme. The whole Texas abortion thing. I don't know. I just popped online to say something to a friend, but my feed was full, and of course with that. But you're seeing, some extremism on both sides fall into that, and I've got one side really amping it up, which made me wonder. And it's the whole, oh my God, devil, just ready to kill, crucify, or the other, had brought it that close, and just leaving a post somewhere. So how's that going to echo in real life? And I just literally, in about 3 sentences, solved it. It was like, okay, yeah, cool. So this is based on what? Thou shalt not kill? Yes, that's absolutely right. Cool. So when we're done here, let's rock it over and welcome the soldiers home. Yeah, dead silence. I mean, whole thread just dead right then and there. Because that's not why any of us were really here for, was it? No. There doesn't say there is not an issue that shouldn't be discussed. But you see how all that misinformation and disinformation just starts flowing from both sides. And anytime you want to do something, because even security, digital security, and our trade, it's called a transaction receipt. I mean, that's how we actually file things. At level 3 transaction. That's the reason it's all level 3. And it's at 20 up to 26, 28 if you press, but some like to get away with 12 points, 12 fillable points. And I mean, even on us, even on our social security number, one of those big 12s, what are they? Your phone number, your face, and your zip code, geo. There's only three original languages to talk to the computer, plus the geo, the GSPS. So you've got a transaction receipt, which is 2 traders, and you definitely need the CA or witness. And generally, 2 validators are brought in to make sure the deal's the deal.
Okay, we're running over on this time. Is there anybody else that wants last comments in? We are running almost a half an hour over. I'm sorry to interrupt anything.
Yeah, I have some closing comments. So at the beginning of this talk, I was saying that we need to understand how misinformation and disinformation works. So because this is vital, right? So I want to expand a little bit on that and say that the reasons why people spread misinformation and disinformation are basically 3, right? One, because they want to earn money. So maybe the people behind that misinfo and disinfo are selling books or or miracle cures or whatever service, And also another possible reason is because they want to have influence, right? So they want to exert influence that can be for political gain or whatnot. And the third one is just because, like, you don't know what's on the people's minds. So remember that some people just want to watch the world burn, right? So those are the reasons behind that. And also remember that misinformation and disinformation works at the emotional level, right? So it uses our emotions such as fear, anger, happiness, and sometimes it uses some techniques to influence us. So, for example, it can appeal to an authority. It can mention like an expert or a supposed expert that it's mentioned, but it's not cited properly. or sometimes it borrows some words from science in a pseudo-scientific way, just to confuse the people or to make the people to believe that what the people is reading is it's true, or to get a little bit of or to look like a legitimate thing. And also, sometimes that misinfo and disinfo claims that there's a conspiracy, right? So those are some techniques that it uses. So we need to be aware, and because from our understanding of misinformation and disinformation, our quality of life depends, also the democracy, and ultimately survival itself. And if you doubt it, I mean, you can see some emblematic instances, such as the assault on the Capitol, right? The COVID infodemic that's going on pretty much in well, maybe not all the world, but in several countries. So how are we supposed to solve the critical issues of the world, such as COVID, global warming, if we don't even think that they are real, right? So that's the importance of understanding the misinformation and disinformation, and realizing that those things are contributing to distracting us, right? So it's so spreading awareness and educating is worth the effort. So thank you very much, everyone who joined us tonight, and thanks to Jen and Alberto for inviting me to co-host this space. Thank you, guys.
Yes, and if we could, we'd like to request if anybody has any future topics, or if anybody wants to continue this on another Spaces event, please send myself or Alberto a direct message with any ideas that you guys might have for that. So we're going to go ahead and close. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much.
Sinu, you pretty much finished where I was taking.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, guys. Without you, this wouldn't have been possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.